1. The first light of dawn painted the horizon with soft pinks and oranges as Harper Stone stood at the dock, her hazel eyes scanning the vast expanse of water ahead. A gentle breeze tousled her long auburn hair, carrying with it the fresh scent of pine and lake water. She clutched a small bag of belongings close to her side, her knuckles white from the tension.
Why the Apostle Islands?
A deep voice interrupted her reverie. Harper turned to find a tall man, probably in his late 20s, standing a few feet away. His sandy hair was ruffled by the wind, and his piercing blue eyes looked at her with a mix of curiosity and amusement. Harper swallowed, suddenly self-conscious. "I've always wanted to work with the National Park Service," she replied, choosing her words carefully. "And the islands. They seemed like the perfect escape." The man chuckled softly.
Escape? From what?
She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the wooden planks beneath her feet. Memories of shouting matches, late-night threats, and the cold grip of fear threatened to resurface, but she shoved them away. "From the city, mostly," she replied, not meeting his gaze, "and some personal stuff." The man nodded, sensing her reluctance to delve deeper.
Well, welcome to Manitou Island. It's not every day we get a new face here, especially not one as pretty as yours.
He winked, and Harper felt a flush rise to her cheeks.
I'm Jason,
He continued, extending a hand.
Been around these islands for a while. If you need anything, you know where to find me.
Harper hesitated for a brief moment before taking his hand. "Harper," she replied. "Thank you, Jason. I think I'll be fine." He grinned, a charming tilt to his lips.
Oh, I have no doubt about that.
With a casual salute, he turned away, heading towards a cabin nestled among the trees. As Harper watched him go, she felt a strange mix of relief and trepidation. The Apostle Islands promised a new beginning, a chance to leave behind the shadows of her past. Yet, as she stepped onto the boat that would take her to Manitou Island, she couldn't shake off the feeling that she was stepping into a web of mysteries she was yet to unravel. Harper's Diary, May 20th, Manitou Island. The rain today had a cadence to it, a rhythm that echoed the distant thrum of my heart. It's been weeks since I've been on this island, and each day peels back a new layer of its story, especially the ones captured in the dusty old logbooks from the fishing camp. Flipping through their pages, I can't help but feel the weight of countless seasons, of countless secrets they've absorbed. The margins are filled with scribbles, hastily jotted notes of daily catches and irregularities. But every now and then, an entry would stand out, a fleeting mention of an unusual event or an unfamiliar name that sends a chill down my spine. It's as if the island, with its wind-whispered tales, is beckoning me to dive deeper, to unravel the intricate tapestry of its past. The volunteers have been incredibly supportive. Their presence, their laughter, and shared experiences have played a pivotal role in making this place feel less isolated. Jasmine from Raspberry Island, with her infectious energy and keen insight, has quickly become a confidant. She has a knack for sensing when I'm lost in thought, and her timely interruptions filled with stories or gossip often pull me back from the abyss of my own musings. And then there's Jason from Devil's Island. Even though he's on a different island, his presence looms large in my thoughts. There's something about him, an untamed wildness that intrigues me to no end. Every interaction, every fleeting glance adds another layer to the intrigue. What stories does he hold? What does he know about the island's mysteries? There's a silent dance between us, a push and pull that neither of us acknowledges but is palpable nonetheless. The initial fear I had, the looming shadow of my ex-boyfriend, has started to dissipate. The island, in its raw beauty and silent strength, has become a protective shield. And the park tourists? They're not so bad after all. The trepidation I felt at first, seeing unfamiliar faces, has been replaced by curiosity and a tentative sense of belonging. They come, they marvel, and they leave, carrying with them tales of their time here. But I remain, gathering stories and seeking answers. As the rain patters on the window tonight, I find myself at the cusp of two worlds, the tangible reality of my present and the tantalizing mysteries of the island's past. But amid all these uncertainties, one thing is clear. Manitou Island has claimed a part of me, and I'm not sure if I ever want it back. Harper. Harper's Diary, June 15th, Manitou Island. It's been a couple of months since I first set foot on the Apostle Islands. The days have blurred into weeks, with each sunrise bringing its own set of wonders and mysteries. The island, with its enigmatic allure, continues to pull me deeper into its embrace. And while the breathtaking beauty of this place never ceases to amaze me, there's something, or rather someone else, that has captured my attention. Jason. Our paths cross every week at the gatherings. There's something so magnetic about him. Perhaps it's the ruggedness that clings to him, much like the earthy scent that seems to permeate his clothes, reminiscent of the dense woods and untouched shores of Manitou. Or maybe it's the stories he carries with him, the tales of living largely in solitude, penning books that I can only imagine contain snippets of this wild, untouched land. Each week, I find myself yearning to see him, to share a stolen moment away from the eyes of the community. I can't help but fantasize about what it would be like to be wrapped in one of his tales, to be a part of his world, even if for a short while. There's a raw authenticity to Jason that contrasts starkly with the facade many from the city wear. His laugh, deep and genuine, his piercing blue eyes that seem to know more than they let on, and the way he carries himself with an ease that only comes from being one with nature. It's intoxicating. But it's not just his physical presence that intrigues me. There's depth to Jason, layers I've yet to uncover. I often wonder what secrets he holds, what tales are etched in the lines of his hands, what stories his eyes hide. He's a puzzle, one I'm eager to solve. However, amidst these budding emotions, the island doesn't let me forget its enigmatic nature. There's an undercurrent, a pulse that runs through Manitou, a mix of ancient legends and hushed whispers that makes me believe there's more to this place than meets the eye. And while I initially sought solace here, I now find myself ensnared in a web of intrigue, the lines between reality and myth becoming increasingly blurred. As I pen down these thoughts tonight, I can't help but hope that the coming days bring clarity. But more than answers, I secretly wish for a moment, just one private moment, with Jason, to delve into his world, to understand him, and in doing so, perhaps understand the mysteries that Manitou hides. Harper. 2. Manitou Island was awash in a golden glow, the sinking sun casting long, languid shadows over the landscape. The tranquil chirps of the crickets and the distant sound of waves lapping against the shore set the tone for the evening. Harper had spent the day settling into her new post, the 1930s fishing camp, a quaint setting with a rustic charm that she had come to appreciate. That evening, under a canopy of stars, the volunteers of the Apostle Islands had gathered around a roaring bonfire. The flames danced wildly, casting a warm light over the assembled group and creating flickering shadows that seemed to come alive. Harper, seated on a log, felt the gentle warmth of the fire on her face. She watched as the volunteers shared stories, laughed, and passed around skewers of marshmallows to toast.
I told you, I saw something moving on Hermit Island last night.
One of the volunteers, a young woman with braided hair, exclaimed, her voice tinged with excitement.
Probably just a deer or raccoon,
Scoffed another, rolling his eyes. At worst, it could be a bear, Harper thought. Before Harper could weigh in, she felt a presence beside her. Turning, she found Jason taking a seat next to her, a bottle of local hard cider in hand.
Enjoying the island life so far?
He asked, his eyes searching hers, reflecting the fiery glint of the bonfire. Harper nodded, hesitating momentarily. It's peaceful, different, but there's something about this place, an undercurrent. Do you feel it? Jason leaned back, looking up at the starry expanse.
Every island has its secrets.
he murmured.
Some beautiful, some haunting, but it's what gives this place its soul.
Harper glanced around at the assembled group, trying to read the faces illuminated by the fire's glow. Everyone seems so close-knit, she observed. It's like a family. Jason's gaze followed hers.
Most of us have been coming here for years. It becomes a part of you. But
He paused, leaning closer to her, his voice a conspiratorial whisper.
even in the closest of families, there are always secrets.
Harper felt a shiver run down her spine, not entirely from the chill of the evening air. She took a deep breath, the scent of burning wood filling her senses. I guess I'll have to discover those secrets for myself. He grinned, raising his beer in a toast.
To new beginnings and uncovering mysteries.
As they clinked their bottles together, Harper couldn't help but wonder what lay in store for her on Manitou Island. With every passing moment, the place seemed to weave its magic around her, drawing her deeper into its enigmatic embrace. 3. Evening settled over the Apostle Islands with a cloak of serenity, masking the underlying tension. Volunteers gathered around a bonfire at Harper's camp, the flames dancing and sending shadows cavorting along the shores of Manitou Island. Harper tried to distract herself with the soft strumming of a guitar and the scent of roasting marshmallows, but a sense of unease settled in her gut. "Why isn't Terry here?" she asked, glancing around the circle of familiar faces. "Has anyone seen him?" There was a collective murmur of uncertainty. Terry, a spirited young man with an infectious laugh, was always among the first to arrive for their weekly gatherings.
I spoke to him over the radio this morning,
said Jordan, a fellow volunteer with a freckled face.
He seemed fine then.
Jason's gaze met Harper's from across the fire, his blue eyes reflecting the flames.
The waters have been calm,
he remarked.
He should have made it by now.
An uneasy silence followed, broken only by the crackling of wood and the distant lapping of waves. The guitar strumming ceased. "We need to check on him," Harper finally said, determination lacing her voice. "We can't just sit here." Jason stood up, brushing the sand off his pants.
I'll go,
he volunteered.
Sand Island isn't too far. I can motor over and check.
Harper hesitated, biting her lower lip. "Are you sure, Jason? It's getting dark." He smiled gently at her, a comforting warmth in his expression.
Don't worry. I know these waters like the back of my hand. Plus, Terry is probably just lost in one of his nature sketches and forgot the time.
While others nodded in agreement, Harper's apprehension didn't wane. "Just be careful, okay?" Jason winked, walking towards his boat.
Always am.
As he disappeared into the night, Harper felt a shiver run down her spine. The night, once filled with camaraderie and laughter, now bore an air of suspense. She hoped Terry was all right, but deep down, a part of her feared this serene island life she'd sought harbored darker secrets than she'd imagined. And she bid farewell to the other volunteers for another week. 4. The island was a juxtaposition of serenity and secrets. As the moon ascended higher into the night, casting its silver glow over Manitou, Harper found herself in the solitary confines of her cabin. The walls around her were adorned with vintage fishing gear and old monochrome photographs from the 1930s, a snapshot of a time long past. Each image, however, seemed to harbor a silent story, a whispered secret that tugged at the corners of her mind. She sank into a worn-out armchair, the ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner accompanying her thoughts. The cabin's isolation, which once offered refuge, now felt like an oppressive weight. Terry's absence, the unsettling stillness of the water, the cryptic glances shared amongst the volunteers, everything hinted at an unseen current, an undertow of concealed truths. "Why can't I shake off this feeling?" she mused, her fingers tracing patterns on the armrest. Her thoughts flitted to her life before Manitou. The echoes of her past, which she had tried to outrun, still haunted her. She had hoped to find solace and perhaps a hint of romance amidst the islands. But now, with the shadows of doubt creeping in, the semblance of peace felt brittle. She found herself longing for the comforting rhythm of the city, the predictability of urban life where mysteries were mere stories, not lived experiences. But then there was Jason. He was an enigma, a mix of familiarity and intrigue. His presence was reassuring, yet she felt there was so much more beneath the surface she had yet to discover. A sudden noise outside the window startled her. Harper strained her ears, but all she heard was the whispering breeze. "Get a grip, Harper," she chastised herself. "You're letting your imagination run wild." She took a deep breath, hoping to dispel her fears. But even as she tried to convince herself that everything was all right, the pressing weight of unanswered questions lingered. "I need answers," she determined, "and I'm going to find them." With newfound resolve, Harper decided she wouldn't let the island's mysteries remain in the shadows. As the first light of dawn approached, she braced herself for the revelations would undoubtedly bring. Harper's Diary, July 14th, Manitou Island. The Apostle Islands. A place I imagined would be my sanctuary, an escape from the chaos of the past. But as each day passes, it feels more like I've exchanged one type of chaos for another. Tonight was meant to be simple. A gathering of friends, laughter under the stars, the humbling reminder of nature's vastness. But Terry's absence has cast a shadow on everything. A gnawing unease festers in the pit of my stomach. The island, which once felt like a protective cocoon, now seems to be hiding something, whispering secrets I'm not privy to. Jason went to Sand Island to check on Terry. There's a comfort in his actions, in his steady demeanor. Despite only having known him for a short time, he feels familiar, like a lighthouse in the midst of a brewing storm. But can I really trust anyone here? Or have I just been blinded by the desire to find solace and connection? The ticking of the grandfather clock in my cabin is my only companion right now. Its rhythmic cadence is both comforting and eerie. Time feels distorted here, with the weight of history bearing down on the present. I chanced upon a name today in one of the old logbooks. Manitou, meaning Spirit Island. The very ground I walk upon is steeped in legend and lore, stories of ancient spirits and the elusive Wendigo. Are they just tales, or is there a thread of truth woven through them? There's a chill in the air tonight that wasn't there before. It's not just the physical cold, but a deeper psychological frost. I find myself longing for the familiarity of my old life, the mundane routines, and the predictable patterns. Here, amidst the vast expanse of water and the hauntingly beautiful islands, predictability is a luxury I can't afford. I pray Terry is all right, that his laughter will once again ring through these islands, dispelling the shadows of doubt and fear. But until then, I am tethered to this uncertainty, grappling with the duality of beauty and mystery that this place offers. Tomorrow is another day, and with it, I hope, comes clarity. But for tonight, all I can do is pen down my thoughts, close my eyes, and listen to the symphony of the islands, a mix of serene waves and whispering winds, with an undertone of secrets yet to be unraveled. Good night, Tilda Harper. 5. Harper leaned against the splintered wood of the dock, her eyes anxiously scanning the tranquil expanse of water. The faint static of the radio crackled in her hand, its weight a manifestation of the impending news. Silence seemed to have wrapped the island, with only the intermittent chirping of crickets and the soft lapping of waves against the shore. A familiar voice broke the stillness.
This is Jason reporting from Sand Island.
Harper's grip on the radio tightened. Jason, did you find Terry? There was a slight pause. just long enough to send Harper's heart racing faster.
No sign of him, Harper.
Came Jason's somber response.
I've searched everywhere. His campsite looks untouched, as if he never made it here.
A chill ran down Harper's spine. She felt the pit in her stomach deepen, her worst fears inching closer to reality. This doesn't make sense, she murmured, mostly to herself. Jordan, sharing the frequency, chimed in.
We should report him missing.
We have to, Harper replied, trying to steady her voice. Terry wouldn't just disappear without a word. Jordan radioed the mainland, recounting the events and officially filing a missing person report. The air grew dense with tension. The Apostle Islands, which once promised solace and retreat, now seemed to be a vast labyrinth of mysteries. Harper sank to the ground, pulling her knees close. What's happening here? First, it was the legends and tales, and now Terry vanishes without a trace. Jordan confirmed over the radio that the authorities are on their way.
We'll find him, Harper. We have to believe that.
But belief felt distant, almost ethereal. Harper's mind swirled with thoughts, each more unsettling than the last. Was it something supernatural, tied to the island's legends? Or was it something more human, more sinister? She remembered her haunting past, the menacing figure of her ex-boyfriend, and the reasons she sought refuge here. Could he have found her?
Harper?
Jason's voice called through the radio again, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. Yes, Jason, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper.
I'm coming back to Manitou,
he said, concern evident in his tone.
We'll figure this out together.
A small flame of hope flickered within Harper. Jason's presence, his unwavering determination, was a beacon in the encroaching darkness. But the questions remained, and the island, once a sanctuary, was slowly threatening to swallow them. 6. As the sun began its descent, casting an orange hue over the island, Harper found herself once again clutching the radio. Its static seemed more pronounced now, each crackle sending waves of anxiety through her. She tuned in, trying to find Jason's voice amidst the chaos of frequencies. Suddenly, a new voice, strong and resolute, pierced through.
This is Wasea of the Red Cliff Tribe. We have intercepted your request to the National Park Services. These islands are ancestral land, and any matters concerning them fall under our jurisdiction.
Harper's breath caught in her throat. She recognized the voice. Wasea was a respected elder of the Red Cliff Tribe, a staunch protector of the tribe's traditions and rights. There was a pause, the tension palpable, before Jason's voice responded.
We respect the ancestral rights, Wasea, but a man is missing. We need every help we can get.
Wasea replied, firm but not hostile.
We are aware, and the tribe will lead the search. The spirits of our ancestors roam these lands. They will guide us.
A new voice, sharp and officious, interjected.
This is Agent Darrow from the National Park Services. While we understand and respect the ancestral rights, the situation is urgent. Protocol dictates...
Wasea cut him off.
Protocol has long ignored our rights. We will not be sidelined any longer. The tribe will handle this.
Harper could feel the weight of history and politics pressing down. The conflict of modern bureaucracy versus ancient rights wasn't new, but she had never felt it so personally. Terry's safety hung in the balance. Jason's voice returned, laced with urgency.
Look, can we just cooperate? Set aside our differences. Right now, every second counts.
There was a pause before Wasea replied.
We will begin the search immediately. Jason, come to the mainland. We will coordinate there.
Jason sighed, a mix of relief and frustration.
Understood, Wasea. Heading there now.
As the radio returned to its regular hum, Harper sat back, overwhelmed. The islands weren't just a haven of nature. They were a nexus of histories, rights, and disputes. As the threads of past and present intertwined, Harper felt a sinking realization that finding Terry wouldn't just be a matter of search and rescue. 7. The relentless thrumming of helicopter blades shattered the afternoon's serenity. Harper jerked awake, her heart racing. She stepped outside, shielding her eyes against the sharp rays of the sun, and was met with a jarring sight. 2 helicopters, one bearing the Red Cliff tribal insignia and the other with the letters NPS emblazoned on its side, circled overhead. Harper watched, mouth agape, as the helicopters danced a precarious ballet in the sky. It was clear they weren't coordinating, they were competing. Beside her, the radio crackled. Jordan muttered over the radio.
This is madness.
It's more than madness, Harper replied, her voice shaky. It's dangerous. As the day wore on, it became evident that the tribal team was the more efficient of the two. While they meticulously combed the islands, communicating via traditional tribal drums and modern radios alike, the U.S. government's effort seemed superficial at best, aimed more at asserting authority than genuinely aiding the search. Seeking a brief respite from the chaos outside, Harper entered her cabin. There, she stumbled upon an old camp logbook, its pages yellowed with age. As she flipped through, a particular entry caught her attention. June 12, 1973. 3 volunteers missing. Rumors of the Wendigo resurface. The elders warn us not to venture out alone. June 12, 1973. 3 volunteers missing. Rumors of the Wendigo resurface. The elders warn us not to venture out alone. The word Wendigo sent a shiver down Harper's spine. She'd heard whispers of the legend, a malevolent spirit that roamed the islands, feeding on human flesh. And now, reading about past volunteers who'd disappeared in a similar manner as Terry. The weight of it all pressed down on her. Harper's deep dive into the island's lore was interrupted by a sharp knock on her door. Opening it, she was met with 2 stern-faced reservation police officers.
Miss Stone?
The taller one inquired. Yes, she responded hesitantly.
We'd like to ask you some questions.
The other agent interjected, his tone brusque. The subsequent interview was grueling. The agents pried into every aspect of her life, their questions often laced with insinuation. Harper felt exposed, her past traumas rising to the surface like old wounds. They questioned her about her reasons for coming to the islands, her interactions with Terry, and even hinted at her possible involvement in his disappearance. As evening settled and the helicopters retreated for the night, Harper felt drained. The island, her supposed sanctuary, now felt like a cage. Between the looming legend of the Wendigo, the uncoordinated search efforts, and the unnerving interrogation, Harper felt more isolated and fearful than ever. She couldn't shake the feeling that the true danger on Manitou Island was only beginning to reveal itself. 8. Night enveloped Manitou Island, but darkness offered no solace for Harper. Instead, shadows seemed to stretch and curl around her, whispering secrets she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. The weight of the day's events pressed on her, every fiber of her being thrumming with anxiety. Her fingers brushed the logbook, the old pages feeling more like a living entity than mere paper. The legends, the warnings, they knitted together in her mind, forming a tapestry of terror she couldn't unravel. She couldn't shake off the sense of being watched, of being the next chapter in a story she did not want to be part of. What if the tales were true? What if something ancient and malevolent did lurk within the island's shadows? Or was the real threat far more human? Thoughts of her past, of the scars she bore both inside and out, surfaced. Maybe she wasn't running from a monster in the dark, but rather from the monsters of her past. Her ex's face flickered in her mind's eye, and she had to suppress the shiver that threatened to roll down her spine. Despite the looming threats, real or imagined, the island had also gifted her moments of serenity and the promise of budding romance. Jason's comforting presence felt like an anchor amidst the storm, a reminder that amidst the eerie tales and official investigations, human connections remained. Yet, in this web of confusion, even he could not be excluded from her rising suspicions. Drawing a shaky breath, Harper decided it was best to stick to her nightly routine. Maybe normalcy, however brief, would grant her some clarity. A trip to the outhouse seemed mundane enough, a brief walk she had done countless times. But tonight, nothing would be mundane. And as Harper jotted down her thoughts into her diary, she could not escape the feeling that she was stepping into the jaws of the unknown. Harper's diary, July 15th, Manitou Island. They say that when you run from your past, you inevitably run into your future. Here, on Manitou Island, I hoped for solace, an escape from the shackles of memories that had become too heavy to bear. Instead, I find myself thrust into a chilling tapestry of mystery that seems to weave tighter with every passing day. Terry's disappearance has cast a long, ominous shadow. The once comforting embrace of nature now feels eerily oppressive. The island, with its pristine waters and whispering trees, hides secrets, and I'm beginning to fear what those secrets might be. The helicopters today, from both the tribe and the FBI, felt like vultures circling a dying prey. And while the tribal efforts seemed genuine, the interrogation by the FBI agents left me feeling exposed, like an open wound in salted water. Their insinuations, their prying questions, it was dehumanizing. I came here to heal, not to be dissected. The old camp logbook doesn't help either. Legends of the Wendigo, tales of volunteers who vanished. It's as if the island itself is narrating a dark, twisted story, and I've become an unwitting protagonist. Yet, amidst this storm of emotions, Jason stands out like a lighthouse. His strength, his warmth, it's a balm. But can I truly trust him? Or anyone here for that matter? The more I ponder, the murkier the waters become. I should rest, try to find some semblance of peace before dawn. But tonight, the moon casts long shadows, and I can't shake off the feeling that something, or someone, is watching. End of entry. 9. The moon, in all its silvery brilliance, painted Manitou Island in a spectral glow. Harper tried to quell the unease coiling within her, reminding herself that her fears were likely amplified by her own traumas and the legends from the logbook. She focused on the soft rustling of the leaves, the lapping of the water against the shores. Yet, as she headed back from the outhouse, she felt the overwhelming sensation of being watched. A twig snapped. Whipping around, her eyes sought out the source, but all that met her gaze was the dappled moonlight playing tricks among the trees. Shaking off the unease, she continued, adjusting her soft cotton pajamas, which seemed to cling a bit too snugly tonight. Another sound, this one closer, like soft footsteps on fallen leaves. Harper's heart raced. She picked up her pace, her instincts screaming that danger was close. She caught a fleeting glimpse of a dark silhouette, merely a blur, darting between the trees. Fear gripped her. She began to run, her breaths coming fast. Branches seemed to reach out, snagging her clothes, tearing the fabric of her pajamas bit by bit in a sensual game of chase, revealing patches of her flushed skin to the moon's glow. Each tear, each snag felt like a violation, a reminder of her vulnerability. Yet every so often, a brush of cool air against her exposed skin made her feel alive, reminding her of the desperate need to survive. As she ran, she dared not look back, but she heard it, the rapid footsteps of her pursuer, the occasional muffled grunt. The woods became a dizzying labyrinth, trees morphing into specters, shadows weaving in and out of reality. Hours seemed to stretch, each minute an eternity of fear and evasion. She stumbled upon a clearing, the moonlight so bright it felt blinding. Pausing to catch her breath, she heard the footsteps stop. All was silent. Then, a whisper, a voice so low it could have been the wind. "Harper!" Terror renewed, she sprinted again, diving into another cluster of trees, occasionally finding refuge behind thick trunks or underbrush, her eyes constantly searching, watching. Through small gaps in the foliage, she'd see a figure, always just out of clear view, perpetually in the periphery. As dawn's first light began to break, fatigue weighed on Harper. Her limbs felt heavy. Her torn pajamas clung to her sweat-slicked skin. As she hid behind a particularly thick copse of bushes, the relentless pursuit seemed to pause. The eerie quiet was almost worse than the chase. Her every sense strained, listening for any sign of movement. Minutes felt like hours. The world was painted in the soft hues of dawn. And then, a distant hum. Harper squinted, her eyes catching the glint of sunlight reflecting off something metallic. A boat, emblazoned with FBI on the side, approaching the island. Heart pounding, she emerged from her hiding spot. The threat, whether real or imagined, seemed to have receded with the night. But the scars from this relentless chase, much like the remnants of her once comfortable pajamas, would stay with her forever. 10. Harper's heart still raced from the nocturnal chase, every fiber of her being strung tight. Each encounter since Terry's disappearance had chipped away at her sense of reality, the boundaries between logic and hysteria blurring. As she made her way towards the FBI's arrival spot, she mentally prepared herself for the interrogation, the questions that would come. They would be as invasive as the hands that seemed to have chased her all night. Would they see her as a suspect, a potential victim, or just another young woman entangled in a mystery beyond her depth? She steadied her breath, the cold morning air filling her lungs as the thud of boots approached.
Miss Stone,
one of the agents barked, his eyes sharp. They darted to her tattered pajamas, assessing her state, and perhaps judging her vulnerability. It was a look she'd seen before, from men who believed they held all the power. She stood firm, returning his gaze. Yes. Can I help you? Their questions were unyielding, probing every corner of her memory. Every detail of the previous night, every interaction she'd had with Terry, every feeling she'd felt. But as the sun climbed higher, a radio crackled with a chilling update. Terry's body had been found. Harper's stomach sank, the weight of guilt and grief intertwining. What was Terry doing on her island? Yet, as they relayed the details of his accidental death, relief too, oddly, settled in. She wasn't a suspect, but neither was she safe.
Look,
the agent said, his tone softer now.
We think there might be a man-eater bear on the island. It's best you head back to your post. We'll handle things here.
As Harper moved towards her motorboat, a sinking feeling gripped her. Empty. The gas tank was empty. Had it been tampered with? Or had she simply forgotten to fill it? Left with little choice, she turned her sights on the kayaks. Raspberry Island and its volunteers were her best shot at safety. As she began to paddle, the island behind her became a tapestry of agents and crime scene tape, of mysteries that remained and secrets yet to be unraveled. 11. The waters around Raspberry Island seemed unnervingly calm as Harper approached its shores, each stroke of the paddle echoing her racing heartbeats. She couldn't help but recall the safety she'd once associated with these waves. Now, every shadow below the waterline made her flinch. Still, the familiar silhouette of Jasmine's camp brought a sigh of relief. As Harper pulled her kayak onto the pebbled beach, a figure emerged from one of the tents. Jasmine, her auburn hair cascading over her shoulders, her face etched with concern.
"Harper!"
she cried, rushing forward. Their embrace was tight, the tension palpable between them, the silence speaking volumes.
"I'm so glad you're okay,"
Jasmine whispered, her breath warm against Harper's ear. Drawing back, Harper's gaze flitted over Jasmine's features, the soft curve of her lips, the intensity of her eyes. Their past nights of laughter and shared secrets on these islands seemed ages ago. "It's getting dangerous, Jas," Harper murmured, her voice strained. Jasmine led her to a makeshift sitting area where they huddled together, wrapped in blankets against the evening chill. The dance of the flames from the campfire cast an ethereal glow, playing tricks on Harper's mind. Was that a shadow beyond the trees? Or just her imagination?
We need to leave.
Jasmine declared, her fingers intertwining with Harper's. The gesture, simple yet profound, grounded Harper. But if we run now, it'll look like we're guilty of something, Harper responded, her thoughts a whirlwind. Or worse, like we're scared. Jasmine leaned closer, her voice a mere whisper.
But we are scared, aren't we?
A beat. Harper inhaled deeply. Yes, but we can't let that fear control us. Their eyes locked, a silent agreement passing between them. For tonight, they'd seek solace in each other's company. Tomorrow would be a new day, and together they'd face whatever mysteries the islands held. Harper's Diary, July 16th, Raspberry Island. Tonight, the walls of the lighthouse feel like they're closing in on me, as if every brick, every crevice holds whispered secrets of its own. The rhythmic sweep of the lighthouse beam cuts through the darkness outside and casts erratic shadows against the walls, each rotation seeming to reveal more mysteries that elude my understanding. Jasmine and I are nestled here, caught between nature's wrath and the enigma of Terry's demise and the looming presence of the unseen stalker. We've pushed the ancient wooden furniture against the door, a feeble barrier perhaps, but it grants a semblance of security. The weight of all the unanswered questions is stifling, choking, and the lighthouse, while a refuge, feels equally menacing. And yet, amidst this maelstrom of emotions, there's an odd solace I find in Jasmine's presence. In the dim candlelight, her eyes hold a mixture of vulnerability and fierce determination that mirrors my own. Every time our hands accidentally brush against one another or our gazes meet, there's a fleeting moment of shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forged between us in the crucible of crisis. We talked tonight, not of the looming threats, but of happier memories, of sunny days on the shore, laughter, dreams we had as children, and confessions of past heartbreaks. It's strange, but the danger surrounding us has peeled back layers, revealing raw truths and emotions. In her, I find an anchor, a beacon as steady as the lighthouse beam. She's become my unexpected confidant, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. We plan to leave at first light. The storm outside is fierce, but the storm within, a swirling vortex of emotions, feels even more intense. I hold on to the hope that tomorrow will bring clarity. But for tonight, as the wind howls and the rain lashes against the windows, Jasmine and I find comfort in each other, two souls united against the dark. Until tomorrow, Harper. 12. The early morning sun poured a dim light on Raspberry Island, casting long shadows over the campsite. Harper awoke with a start, the previous day's events flooding her senses. The weight of unease was palpable as she sat up and looked at Jasmine, who was already pacing by their makeshift camp, inspecting their supplies.
Our gas cans are empty.
Jasmine exclaimed, frustration evident in her voice. She looked at the outboard motor of their boat, the fuel line hanging limply.
I don't understand. I swear I filled them yesterday.
Harper's heart raced, the gravity of their situation weighing heavily. It's okay, Jazz. We'll think of something. Maybe someone will. The distant sound of a helicopter interrupted her. The two women strained their eyes to the horizon, spotting the chopper approaching Manitou Island. The FBI's black emblem was unmistakable.
We need to signal them,
Jasmine cried, but her voice held a tremor of doubt. After her last confrontation with them, could they be trusted? But before Harper could respond, she realized something. The radio! It's gone silent! She fumbled with the dials, but the usually crackling channel was eerily quiet. Panic edged Jasmine's voice. We have the flare gun! Let's use that! Without waiting for a response, Harper grabbed the flare gun from their supplies and shot it into the sky, the red blaze a stark contrast against the graying dawn. They held their breath, hoping against hope that it was seen. Harper and Jasmine held their breath for an eternity. As they looked towards Manitou Island, they saw no relief. With no more flares, a feeling of desperation started to grip them. Behind them, from a distance, the drone of a motorboat caught their attention. As the silhouette grew clearer, Jason's familiar face came into view. His eyes widened in relief upon seeing them.
Thank God.
He shouted over the motor's roar.
I saw the flare. The radio's been acting up everywhere.
But his relief was short-lived. Overhead, the once clear sky was rapidly darkening. A storm was brewing, and the waves grew more aggressive by the minute. "We need to find shelter," Harper cried out, pointing to the looming structure in the distance, the Raspberry Island lighthouse. The trio made their way there, the wind howling and rain starting to pelt down. Inside, the lighthouse felt eerily ancient, the walls whispering tales from decades past. Jason, out of breath, spoke.
This storm isn't normal. It came out of nowhere.
Jasmine, her wet hair sticking to her face, responded.
Neither is anything that's happened in the last 48 hours.
Harper, looking out from a broken window, watched the storm rage. "We'll ride it out here, together." Her voice held a mix of determination and fear, but also an undeniable bond that the three shared. For now, the lighthouse was their beacon in the storm, a silent guardian against the raging tempest and the mysteries that continued to unfold. "Who is the killer? Pick your ending." The ex-boyfriend. Harper and Jasmine held their breath for an eternity. As they looked towards Manitou Island, they saw no relief. With no more flares, a feeling of desperation started to grip them. Harper, having discovered a picture of her and her ex in her tent, feels a cold chill running down her spine. By the time night falls, Harper and Jasmine are preparing to leave the island when they spot a familiar figure emerging from the shadows. It's Harper's ex, now using the name Mike. He tries to sweet-talk Harper, telling her he's changed, but his intentions are clear when he reveals a knife. Jasmine and Harper manage to overpower him together, using their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. The next morning, they depart the island together, leaving behind a tied-up Mike for the authorities, a park visitor. While packing up their belongings, Harper finds a diary buried near their campsite. It belongs to the visitor, detailing his past as a volunteer and his growing obsession with the islands and the people who inhabit them. They are ambushed by him, his face distorted by madness. After a tense chase, they corner him at the edge of a cliff. With nowhere to go, the visitor, overcome by emotions, leaps off the cliff, leaving the women in shock, but safe. One of the volunteers. Jasmine finds a collection of artifacts in Jason's tent as he brings them back to Devil's Island for safety, each linked to a disappeared volunteer. Harper confronts Jason, who chillingly reveals his long-held dark motives. He's cornered Harper, ready to add her to his list when Jasmine surprises him, and together the two women fend him off. They discover he had been living in a hidden cave on the island, containing mementos of all his victims. The two women alert the authorities, but Jason disappears. A Wendigo. As night falls, the air becomes icy, and haunting whispers surround the island. Harper and Jasmine see apparitions of the past volunteers, including Terry. Realizing that the Wendigo can possess any of them, they draw a protective circle using knowledge from the Red Cliff Tribe's legends. The Wendigo, in the form of Terry, tries to lure Harper out using a possessed Jordan, using her emotions against her. Jasmine chants an old tribal song, driving the Wendigo away temporarily. The next morning, with the island still under the shadow of the Wendigo's presence, they leave, vowing never to return, with the Wendigo's echoing growl in the distance.